1 minute. That is all the time that is left until Luffy can use his Haki once again, and he is back up and running for he can fight Luffy once again. So, is anyone else quite shocked that these 10 minutes, like the time that Luffy's been out of commission, didn't last longer? Like, usually when it comes to shonen, especially with the timetable, when we find out like that we have to wait like 10 minutes to 30 minutes to an hour until something is going to happen, usually stuff like that, it takes like 30 chapters to get through something like that. But I'm quite shocked that Oda has kind of sped up the pacing just a little bit when it came to this wait time, and it's actually coming so soon, because honestly, I'm satisfied with this chapter of One Piece, just knowing that majority of all the build-up and the setup and waiting for the time till Luffy can get back up and start fighting Luffy once again is going to be happening very soon, most likely even next week. Judging by the way Oda does his chapters, I'm going to assume next week, majority of it's going to be like the 1 minute ticking down, and then Luffy's going to probably get up and do stuff at the end of the chapter, probably the last couple pages, and then that'll be the end of chapter next week. I'm assuming that's what's probably going to happen. But I'm just really satisfied that Oda has progressed through these minutes so quickly, because usually this would be dragged out quite a bit, and I'm just really happy. I'm really happy to see chapters like this, especially seeing how it is going quite fast. Now, the thing is, okay, with this chapter of One Piece, say what you will, it's a setup chapter. That's what it is. Like, it's just being brutally honest, setup chapter for the final confrontation of Luffy versus Luffy. Because Luffy, as we know, he's kind of hurt, and Luffy, I guess you can kind of consider him hurt too, and they're about to be squaring off once Luffy gets back up. Now, we don't know if Luffy has Gear 5. We can assume he does. He might unveil a new technique, but at the moment, the final battle is upon us. And we do know that it's going to be coming very soon, and this arc is getting closer and closer to its conclusion. So we have to wonder right now, is Luffy going to be using his Gear 4 once again, or is he going to show us a new technique once he gets back up? A lot of questions, but to dive into this chapter, the main focus is just a bunch of people, or everybody in this arc, like the majority of all the main characters of this arc, or that was introduced, stands up and tries to hold back the birdcage. That's exactly what this chapter is about. The main point of the chapter, or the theme that you can pull out of this chapter, is that the entirety of Dres Rosa is working together to stand up, defend their hometown against this onslaught of Luffy trying to kill them all. And that's what this chapter represents. Everybody working together to stall and hold back the birdcage for Luffy can get back up and fight. So that's about it when it comes to the chapter. I mean, personally, I know some might not like the chapter because it was set up. I like these type of chapters, especially the way the pacing was done. Like I said earlier on in the video, the pacing was very quick, and so you can truly enjoy this chapter knowing that this is probably going to be one of the final setup chapters of this arc. It's very obvious. It's going to be one of the final chapters of setup. And I'm looking forward to seeing what Oda's going to do next, because I'm very excited to see how the fight is going to go. Because, I mean, you have Violet, she's sitting there right in front of Luffy in the middle of this chapter. You have it to where, you know, we find out more about the dwarfs, is like the Manchuri dwarf, the queen princess. Like, her tears can be put into dandelions, and it has a temporary effect to where it can heal people for a certain limited amount of time, and then they'll get hurt once again, judging by the translations. Now, the translations could be off, because it is Manga Panda, so, yeah, we'll have to see. But the question is, though, is next chapter going to be another setup, or is it going to be revealing Luffy getting back up and fighting Luffy? But as I said already in the video, I'm going to assume about probably 90% of next week's chapter is going to be kind of similar to this a little bit, and then Luffy's going to get up at the end of the chapter, and that's probably how it's going to end, I'm assuming. But I could be wrong. Luffy might be able to get up, like, right in the middle of the chapter, beginning of the chapter, and start kicking some fucking ass. Or maybe Manchuri heals Luffy. That's also a possibility. That's not entirely off the table, because, I mean, if you think about it, if one of those dandelions hit Luffy, he would have his, you know, he'd be healed for a limited amount of time. His damage won't be gone completely because it'll revert back, but he'll be able to fight Doffy. So there is a possibility something like that might happen, because it makes me question, like, what's the purpose of the dandelions? Like, I understand the purpose in this chapter. The dandelions were shown in this chapter just to heal up the people that were having trouble running away from the bird cage while, you know, everybody was trying to stop it. And that's kind of why the dandelions were introduced. But the big question is like, is those going to have another role when it comes to what's going on with Luffy? Like, I mean, are one of them going to hit Luffy and heal him? I mean, a lot of questions. So, overall chapter, solid. It's a solid chapter. I mean, it's a setup chapter. You couldn't ask for much better. I mean, it was a very solid setup chapter, and I'm looking forward to seeing, you know, what's going to happen next, because the setup chapters are pretty much done with. Like, next week, like I said, probably one of the final setup chapters, and then we'll probably have some really great content really coming up ahead. So, love you all so much. You have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.